15 minutes late for break. Boy,
Come on, Stanley. Hi, Frank.
Frank Barton has just closed his eyes. It's a natural, simple thing to do. But Frank Barton is on the job, not at home. And his closing his eyes is the first step in a chain of events that will eventually involve his supervisor, the plant manager, and, in the middle of it all, the local union steward, where Frank works.
In the middle of it all, as good a description of where the local union steward is as any I've heard. Whenever I think about this enormously important job, I'm reminded of something called a steward's prayer, which in part asks, "Oh Lord, make me formidable in debate, logical in argument, fearless in confrontation, a lawyer, actor, mathematician, sage, philosopher, sociologist, and economist. Teach me, O Lord, to stand at all times with 2 feet on the ground, even when I have no leg to stand on." Even in its humor, it points to just how challenging the job of steward is. Here is the major link between the union and its members, the person who represents the union to the members at a particular facility. Here is the person who deals with management to secure and preserve the rights of fellow members. Here is the person who can profoundly and positively affect the lives of union members and their families. There, I believe, lies the real joy and satisfaction of being a steward, the greatest reward. Now, a steward's responsibility is not limited to one area of employee relations, but a majority of the time is spent in handling members' concerns and complaints that can turn out to be grievances. The presentation you are about to see is concerned with the elements that combine to make the grievance processing procedure.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can I get through, sir? Stanley, can you let me through? Thank you, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me. Steve, watch out, sorry, sir. Excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah, no, later, bye. Excuse me. Harry.
Hey, Frank, wait a minute, there's a line, man.
I need to talk to you, man.
Look, we're civilized around here.
I'm sorry.
Besides, some people don't like being cut in front of.
Will you listen to me? Thomas just caught me with my eyes shut in the supply room. At least I'm pretty sure she did.
You gotta be kidding, Frank. I mean, how could you not know whether you got caught?
Well, I sort of opened my eyes just as she walked out. She slammed the door hard. I think she's going to try to get me.
Look, if she calls you on it, go on in, find out what it's all about, and then get back to me. It's not going to do anybody any good for me to go in with you. Look, if I went in every time somebody got called down, I'd never have time to do what I'm supposed to, right?
I guess so.
Harry has left Frank Barton to face the supervisor alone. It's something Frank is hardly prepared for.
Frank Barton, you looking for me? Where's that famous Frankie Barton smile?
She really stuck it to me, Harry. I got a 10-day suspension starting Monday. 10 days. It's gonna hurt me, man. I can't afford that. But that's not even the point. What you did was wrong, just plain wrong.
Sit down, Frank. We've got a lot to talk about. Now tell me, exactly what happened.
I was on the 7:30 to 4 shift, and it was real busy around break time, so I couldn't get away when I was supposed to. I had to wait about 15 minutes for things to settle down.
What time was that?
About 9:30, I guess, around there. Anyway, I got some coffee. I went into the room. I set up these 2 chairs and stretched out. Basically, I was resting my legs when Thomas came in. She didn't say a word. She just slammed the door on the way out.
Were you sleeping?
No way. I had my eyes closed, but I wasn't sleeping. And my hat was pulled down a little bit. I was drowsy. It must be from the sinus medicine I've been taking. I've been feeling kind of sluggish since I got on it.
Over-the-counter stuff?
No, I bought it on the street. Of course it's over the counter. Come on. There's one more thing. I sold Thomas this old car I had about 2 years ago now. It was for a kid, and he's had a lot of problems with it. I don't think she's forgotten about that, and I think she's mad at me about it.
Have you ever been warned about sleeping on the job before?
No, never. This is the first time.
But you do know the company's rules about sleeping on the job.
I know the rules, but I wasn't sleeping.
Were you trying to hide yourself in any way?
No, I was right out in the open. Look, you'd had to have your eyes shut in order to miss me.
Did you make any kind of preparations in the room?
You mean like, did I bring my pillow and blanket or something like that?
Yeah.
Come on, Harry, no. It was just the chairs, and they were already there.
Did the other people on your shift know where you were?
No, I was working alone.
Okay.
With his questions to Frank, the steward has begun the grievance processing procedure. He'll also talk to the supervisor who found Frank. If others had been involved, in this case none were, he would make it a point to speak to them as well. His goal is to evaluate the situation, to determine whether or not Frank Barton's complaint is a grievance. Of course, before this can be done, the definition of a grievance must be absolutely clear. In simplest terms, a grievance is a violation of a worker's rights. Such a violation can fall into one of 5 categories. It can be a violation of the contract, a violation of federal, state, or local law, a violation of past practice, written or unwritten, a violation of company rules, or a neglect of management responsibility. If any of these points apply, there may be a valid grievance.
Yes, well, just tell them that the shipment arrived on time, but there was quite a bit of damage done. And replacements are going to have to be made as soon as possible. Listen, can I call you back in a couple of minutes? Someone just came in the office. Yeah, right. Okay, bye now. What can I do for you, Harry?
I want to talk to you about the situation with Frank Barton. He's pretty upset about that 10 days.
Oh, make it fast, will you, Harry? I had a lot more to do than worry about an open and shut case with Frank Barton.
Well, I don't think it's an open and shut case, and neither does Frank. Now, can I ask you a few questions? It won't take long.
Go ahead.
Tell me what happened.
Well, I walked into the room and looked up, and there's Barton, sound asleep, stretched across a couple of chairs like a prince. I didn't even say anything. I just walked out and slammed the door as I went.
I should have come up here with him in the first place. They talk about the wine garden rights over and over again in training. It's his right and my job. Who knows, we might have been able to work this whole thing out then and there. Now we're probably going to have to file a grievance.
A great deal of ground has been covered so far. Now, let's backtrack a bit. What should the steward have done when Frank initially approached him? Here are some of the steps the steward should have taken. He should have accompanied Frank to the supervisor's office. There, he would have listened to the allegations against Frank and been able to compare them with what Frank said. Of course, here this is impossible since the steward never heard Frank out. Beyond that, had he gone with Frank, he would have known the contemplated disciplinary action and, more importantly, been in a position to seek a negotiated settlement right away. Earlier, we heard the steward ask Frank Barton some questions in order to clarify Frank's situation. What questions did the steward ask Frank? Let's review those questions. Had you done the same thing before and been warned about it? Were you aware of company rules concerning sleeping on the job? Isn't it unusual for employees to stretch out during a break? Did you try to hide yourself in a place far from your normal work area? Did you do anything to prepare a pad or pillow to lie on? Were your fellow workers aware of what you were doing during your break? Harry has spoken to the two principal players in this situation, Frank Barton and his supervisor. Those talks were enlightening, but before he goes any further, he has to almost assume the role of a private detective and do some very important investigative work. Part of that investigative work involves getting relevant work records. What records might the steward request? Once he received those records, what should he do next? The simple truth is that within the grievance process, work records must be made available by management. Use them. You can request anything from gross wages paid and wage rates to the disciplinary and performance records of the grievant, and a lot of other things. Harry got records pertinent to Frank's case and discussed them with Frank. At the same time, he went over Frank's story one more time to be sure.
You gotta go, man.
Now, after having gathered a valuable and telling collection of information, he's about to go to another meeting with the supervisor. He has set it up, and Frank Barton will be there.
I've been looking at the situation real hard, and we've got a solid grievance here, a real solid one.
Oh, is it? What is it?
Oh, come on. The whole thing is way out of line. Now, we'll file a grievance on any disciplinary action that you take, but this, I mean, what's it based on? How could you have known that he was asleep? You never bothered to go over to him. You never even said a word to him.
You want to know what this is all about? It's about the damn car I sold her for a kid.
Oh.
That's what this is all about. She's been after me ever since then. It is the car, right?
Oh, come on, just because we haven't been able to get it out of reverse ever since.
Whoa,
See?
hold
I
it,
told
hold
you,
it, hold it.
she admits it.
Frank, I'm not interested in that. If you've got a problem with the car, handle it on personal time. This is about what took place at work.
Thanks, Harry. I could have handled it myself.
Okay, now, besides you didn't go over to him, have you looked at this man's work record? He's been here, what, almost 7 years now? And the slate is as clean as the day that he started. You put his work record up against this offense, this alleged offense, and you gotta wonder where you're coming from. 10 days? Come on, Thomas, be serious. This thing shouldn't have gotten 10 seconds. It shouldn't have gotten anything. There's more, but for right now, that's enough. This is a grievance, and I want to handle it here and now. What do you say?
There's no way I'm going to make a decision right now. I'll get back to you later, okay?
While he isn't positive, Harry is pretty sure from the tone of the meeting that this matter won't be settled simply between steward, worker, and supervisor. Because of that feeling, Harry is preparing for the next step in the process, reducing the grievance to writing. If the supervisor denies his suggestion to solve the problem quickly and early, Harry will be ready to file the grievance fast, within the contract-stipulated time limit. Another thing he must do is temper Frank's expectations.
Hey, lighten up, man. Smile. Don't be so serious.
It's a time to be serious, Frank. I'm filling out a grievance form for your problem.
What are you doing that for? You don't think Thomas is going to handle this herself?
Nope. She might, but I'd be surprised if she does. And if she doesn't, I'm going to have to fill this form out, so I thought I'd do it up front. Look, we've got a good case with a lot of facts on our side. But if we have to go forward, like I think we will, I'm going to have to get this in under a time limitation, or it won't matter how good a case we've got. We're history. So leave me alone. Let me finish it up, okay?
Many contracts provide that a grievance be put into writing if it's not satisfactorily settled in step 1, where the worker, the steward, and the supervisor meet. A written grievance serves to let management know that the union plans to continue the case. Brevity is essential. Only provide enough information to let management know which situation is being contested. Answer these questions efficiently and briefly. Who has the grievance? Where did it happen? What happened? Why is it a grievance? Here, mention all clauses of the contract that have been violated or the condition complained of. Finally, write what settlement is desired.
What do you think, Frank?
I think I'm glad you're our steward. I mean, this looks pretty good to me. I've never been in on one of these things before, you know. I didn't realize how much work it takes.
Well, I've been on a bunch of them.
So where do we go from here?
Well, when she denies us, if she denies us, then I file this with management. And our contract says that within 5 days, they must set a date and time for step 2 of the grievance procedure.
Step 2?
Yeah, that's when you and I meet with Langston.
The plant manager?
Yeah, and Thomas. And then we go to the mat and try to sell this thing.
You've done this before, Harry. Do I have a shot? I mean, 10-day suspension is really going to kill me.
I learned the hard way a long time ago not to make promises. But you've got a shot.
The steward has conducted a thorough investigation. He's questioned the people involved and made full use of work records. A grievance form has been carefully and concisely filled out. Now, the grievance will be filed with management. When it is, a step 2 meeting will be scheduled. What arguments can the steward use in order to make a strong presentation on behalf of Frank Barton?
There's no way Thomas could be sure he was asleep in that room. She never said a word to him. The machinery noise was so loud, he never heard her come into there. Did they ever show Frank wasn't on a delayed break? I've got to check, but isn't delaying a break allowed? I want to look at his work record again. Man, Frank is a top-notch employee. Don't forget he was taking that sinus medicine that caused him to be drowsy. Yeah, let's bring that part in. No, keep the personal stuff out. The car doesn't count here.
I'll take care of that later, but for now, no more phone calls, Jackie. We've got to get this matter over with as quickly as possible. Now, go on, Miss Thomas.
Well, as I was saying, I walked into the room and there was Barton stretched out with his hat pulled down over his eyes.
And what did you do then?
Well, I didn't do anything. I just looked at him and saw that he was asleep and walked out. I slammed the door.
How did you know that he was asleep?
You just know by looking. I know when someone's sleeping.
So you gave him a 10-day suspension?
Oh, that's right. And wouldn't you have done the same thing?
No. No, I think if it had been me in your position, I probably would have done more than that. You see, sleeping on the job has always been one of my pet peeves. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. In any case, I must say that it seems to me that Miss Thomas's action was entirely justified. I mean, the whole thing seems pretty cut and dry to me. The man was sleeping, and we can't have that. Not here, not while I'm in charge of this plant.
Excuse me, but unless I'm mistaken, there is another side to this story.
Well, of course there is, Reston. I didn't mean to get carried away. I just feel very strongly on this point, and I wanted everyone to know exactly where I stand. I've always prided myself on being straight with people. Now, go on, Reston. Let's hear your side of the story.
Frank Barton is an exemplary employee.
Exemplary employees don't sleep on the job.
You don't know that he was.
No, of course not. That's what we're here to determine.
Exactly. Now, he has been with this company almost 7 years, and his work record is spotless. But that's not even close to the point.
What is the point, Reston?
The point is that Frank Barton is being disciplined without just cause. The simple fact is that he did nothing at all wrong. His break was delayed because he was too busy to take it at his scheduled time, so he went on it 15 minutes later. Now, it has always been a practice of this company that if an employee works through his break because he's on a hot job The break is taken at another time.
Barton didn't take his regularly scheduled break?
Well, I'm sure you don't want people dropping what they're doing to take a break. Anyway, without trying to hide himself, without making any special preparations, he simply stretched out on 2 chairs to rest his legs. He was not asleep, although his eyes were closed. Now, Thomas saw him, and without asking a question, without saying a word, assumed that he was asleep. She assumed that he wasn't on a break, and she disciplined him. A few words from her could have saved us all a lot of time and effort, because she would have found out that he was on a break, that he was not asleep, and that he was taking an over-the-counter sinus medication that tended to make him a little drowsy. If she had thought about his work record, she might have come to the conclusion that this is not a man who breaks rules. If you look at all the facts, you have to come to the conclusion that there is no case here, and that the 10-day suspension should be set aside completely.
Harry has prepared his case well. He's confident of his ability to express it and win it. And as an experienced steward, he's well aware of management tactics that might come into play during a Step 2 meeting. He won't do any trading. That is, he won't give up on one grievance to win another one. He won't let his attention be diverted from the grievance by the raising of side issues. He knows he's there for just one reason. He won't say too much, only enough to make a case. He won't, under any circumstances, lose his self-control, even if he's provoked. And although this particular meeting came off quickly and on schedule, he won't allow management to stall. In fact, a pattern of failing to meet or deal with grievances can be the basis for an unfair labor practices charge or a grievance on the issue.
So everything considered, what do you think, Harry?
I think it went pretty well. They were straight this time, no tricks. To tell you the truth, I swear I think I saw something register on Langston's face when I ran all those points past him. And that's unusual. Most of the time, he's poker-faced. So either way, we're going to hear something pretty soon. If Langston bought our case, I'm sure that he's going to want to get back to us before he loses some time from the job. So all in all, it went pretty good.
What can I say, man? Thanks a lot.
So Frank Barton's grievance has been heard. Harry thinks things went well. If you were the steward, what would you have done differently?
That it?
That's it.
So what's the verdict?
Langston's answer was, and I quote, "The company can't and won't tolerate sleeping on the job. However, based on the facts of this case, the grievance is sustained."
One?
Great!
Harry, thanks a lot, man.
Just one favor for me, Frank. Never, ever tell Thomas anything again.
Harry Reston won this case for Frank Barton. It was not a particularly difficult one, but simple or complex, the rules of evaluation, investigation, and presentation apply equally. The union came out on top because the steward acted as an advocate for a union member and represented that member forcefully and vigorously. Beyond that, he knew the contract, knew the steps to take, and took them with care and precision. As a result, a bad management decision was rectified. A worker's life was positively affected, and the position of the union was enhanced. That's what being a steward is all about.